So we're going to take a look at the Sam F. Davis Stakes. It's a Grade 3 run at Tampa Bay Downs. It's the 10th race on the Saturday card, and it's run at a mile and a 16th for 3-year-olds, and it represents the lone Derby prep going on this weekend. So let's take a look at the field. And we see, now we were going to have Locked in this field, which obviously would have added to the intrigue, but he has contracted a fever and is out of action. Hopefully won't be too terribly long. So it kind of opens this race up, not kind of, it greatly opens this up to a lot of different possibilities, and it's going to be very interesting to see who ends up the chalk. Here, at the time of recording, I didn't have the odds for the morning line. So it's a very interesting field, and in many respects, it's better not to have the morning line when taking a look at this group because it is fairly diverse. And we'll go through them. This is how we're going to play it. We'll go through them one at a time. El Principito really hasn't factored in several races with similar company here, and I don't expect anything different that tells me that he will be a factor in this race. So he'll be on the lead early, but he's going to have some company that'll likely burn him up, so he's a toss. Copper Tax is one that's had some success in the past. Won 5 in a row, but mostly at Delaware Park. And not sure if 2 turns is exactly what this one wants, but he does have some class. And Tampa generally plays to earlier speed, and we saw that last year in particular in the Derby preps. So I think horses that have tactically will be up or near the lead will definitely have an advantage in this race. And again, I'm not overly certain if this one can get the distance. But I think that tactically he's going to be in good position, and I do like the fact that he does have some fight in him. So Copper Tax probably going to use underneath to fill out the exotics, but he's one that I think we have to use. Ever Do It was no factor, 6th in the Mucho Macho Man, and he basically just served as cheap speed. His pedigree doesn't say 2 turns, but he might be able to carry his speed a little further here given the bias towards early runners, but I think distance is really the biggest issue. So to me, early Ever Do It is just sort of, again, cheap speed here, and he's a pass. If we look at Tireless, now Tireless brings up a very interesting theme, I think, for this race, and it's very important to keep in mind. We've got some prominent trainers in this race, but their horses, most of them, are their cachet, if you will, or their prestige is based upon who trains them. And Tireless, I think, is a great example of that. He was put on dirt for the second time after he scored in his maiden here, but he doesn't look to be improving, and he'll likely be an underlay in what is a pretty soft field. And he graduated against a pretty weak field. Todd Pletcher is terrible with maidens moving into stakes races. He's likely going to be an underlay because he's trained by Todd Pletcher, and I don't want any part of him, not in this race. So Tireless is a pass. Patriot Spirit improved for the 3rd straight race in the inaugural stakes win. He rated kindly and drew off when asked. He hasn't run since December, and this is his first around 2 turns, but he is by constitution, so he should definitely relish the added ground. And he'll likely be in great position when the pace setters start to fade. So I think Patriot Spirit, to me, looks like a horse on the come, and in this field, tactically, will be in very good position. I like his chances. I think we ought to use Patriot Spirit. No More Time, scratched out of the Holy Bull to run here, which is, this is certainly a softer spot. You wouldn't have to deal with what we thought was going to be a monster in Fearless. This horse I like. I really liked him in the Holy Bull prior to scratching. He had a bad start in the Mucho Macho Man, yet he rallied 4 wide, and so he showed some ability. He should move forward in this race, I think, provided he breaks well. And I don't think that's going to be an issue because in his prior races, that wasn't a problem. I think this one, tactically, again, will be up nearer the pace. in the Mucho Macho Man. Again, the bad break made him, consigned him to the rear, but he rallied very nicely. And that's what I liked about him. He showed some quality, and I think this one is ready to move forward, being by not this time. I think this is a good race for him. I like No More Time a lot in this spot, especially since you're likely to get a price following that Mucho Macho Man. Change of Command is another one that gets maybe a little more hype than he should because he's trained by Shug McGahee. Cortland Farms owns him. That's a venerated Derby prep outfit. They had General Jim last year. They've always got somebody in the mix. Shug is killing it at Tampa as he did last year. He always seems to do very well at this meet. This was $1 million purchase, and he's got 2 turns written all over him, being by Into Mischief with Medaglia d'Oro underneath. I have a couple of concerns about Change of Command, though. Number one, it's very unusual for Shug not to throw a 5-furlong work on the tab. And that just seems a little strange to me, that a horse who's presumably going to be on the Derby trail and running in a Derby prep doesn't have a 5-furlong work on his tab. Those are stamina builders, and it's just kind of a little odd thing. But he is second off the layoff, and he did have a tightener in the last one, so he should be ready. It was a pretty good optional claimer he ran in. But he really had to work in the optional claimer last time to get the job done. And I think that the fact that he looks like a horse who has trouble staying focused or closing the deal, if you will. Had that same problem against Sierra Leone, but of course, Sierra Leone is not here today, so perhaps that gives him a little bit of an advantage. But it looks like this horse is going to move forward, but I do have some question marks, and I think you're likely going to get an underlay. He'll probably be the favorite. I think you have to use him, but I'm not so certain about this horse closing the deal. So Change of Command, while he'll definitely be used, I'm not sure if I want to bet the house on him. West Saratoga on number 10. That Iroquois win really hasn't been flattered by Risk It or Liberal Arts, who didn't really run that much in the Southwest Stakes. In particular, Liberal Arts was a pretty big disappointment. This one ran a pretty disappointing race in the Pasco as he had no answer for Bookham Dano. He was coming from off the pace, and of course, that's going to be that is a challenge in Tampa Downs in this race, I think. He really hasn't shown that he's progressing terribly much from 2 years old. And if you consider his best efforts come from off the pace in that style where he rallies late, then I wonder about his chances here. His top end is a little light. And again, I don't see the big progression here. So if you like him, I mean, he looms as a minor player, I think, at best. But in a race like this, I think he's going to be an underlay, and I don't want any part of him. I'm looking for value, particularly in a race like this, especially with Locke out of the mix. Elysian Meadows is, again, another one. He's trained by Bill Mott, so, of course, immediately he gets hyped a little more than he probably ought to. This one... I don't like the gap in the tab at all. That's highly unusual for Bill Mott. And there's a short spacing of works. And those are both, to me, red flags when you consider Bill Mott's track record and the way he trains horses. This one's only run against state breds at Aqueduct. And the post really doesn't do him any favors, and it's his first route. So there's a lot of first-time things that Elysian Meadows is dealing with. And so my instinct is to wait one with this horse. And, we've seen Bill Mott do this with like Rocket Can last year, and they'll be progressing. But I don't think this one, probably will move forward. We'll probably run a halfway decent race. I don't see this one as a win candidate, particularly from the 12 hole. And again, the hype that these horses get with these high-profile trainers in a race like this, I think a lot of them are going to be underlays, and let's try to beat them. They don't show me enough to get excited about. So Elysian Meadows, I'm going to scratch. Now, Crazy Mason is kind of interesting that his running style puts him at a disadvantage, I think, in this race. He had a decent second to Patriot Spirit in the inaugural, but he came from the clouds to get that one, as he did in his last optional claimer. Now, in his last race, he did overcome a glacial pace. The pace was extremely slow, and he was able to run down Fulmineo, Fulmineo, however you pronounce it, who's in this race. But I think Crazy Mason has a little more upside than Fulmineo does. And I think that is a positive sign, seeing a horse close into a very slow pace and still able to come up on top. I still don't like necessarily his chances to win given the way this track sets up, but I think he's a horse you can use underneath with a great degree of certainty given his running style. And the horse is getting better, so he has a puncher's chance of taking this one down, but I think more likely the better place for him would be in the exotics. Agate Road seems to me a very weird choice for this race, considering he scratched last week out of the Kitten's Joy to run on dirt. And I just wonder what the reasoning is behind this. I don't know why he scratched. I didn't hear any reasoning behind it. But all of a sudden to move him to dirt, this looks to me like they're just looking for a tightener. And that he has run on dirt before in this field. Let's give him a shot. Maybe we can strike gold. But his running style's all wrong for this race. He's a late runner, and I'm not sure how good this horse really is. He really didn't run against a whole lot of class aside from the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, which he did okay in. But this one's going to be coming from the clouds, and he's definitely going to be an underlay in this field. So to me, he's a pass. There's a lot of question marks, not enough to me just because Todd Pletcher throws this one in a dirt race that I get excited about and say bet the house on him. So if he beats me, he beats me. But if you like him, put him underneath, but that's the extent of my interest. And then finally, Fulmineo. This is another late runner who's done most of his work on turf. He did run in that optional claimer with Crazy Mason last time, but you can't like the fact that he was a little closer to the pace than he normally is. He got the lead, and he couldn't hold it. Crazy Mason ran him down. He had a slow pace he was running to, and he doesn't break terribly well. So just the fact that he got caught in that last race, I don't think you can like him from there. He broke slow, and it really didn't cost him because the pace was so slow, but likely there's going to be more pace in this race, which I think means that he's at a disadvantage. The only reason I would use Fulmineo is if there's a boxcar price on him for underneath in the exotics, and that's the extent of my interest. So taking a look at this field, I don't want the more high-profile horses because I frankly don't see any of them, aside from Change of Command, who really show me that they've got upside and are ready to compete in a Grade 3 stakes race. So No More Time to me is the horse I like at value, which I think you have to have in this race. And we're going to use Copper Tax underneath, as we mentioned. Patriot Spirit, I like a lot in this race too. Change of Command. And then Crazy Mason to round out the horses we use. And if we take a look at our wagering strategy, we're going to go win, play, show across the board with No More Time. I think we'll likely get a price. Hopefully we can get something like 9-2, 4-1, or a little better than that would be ideal. And then we'll key box 5 on top with 3, 4, and 9. You could certainly throw Copper Tax in there, but I just don't think he's got enough to get second. And then we'll key No More Time on top with a trifecta with 3, 4, 7, and 9. And then we'll back key Crazy Mason because I think it's a very good likelihood that he's going to get finish underneath. So we can back key him for second and third with 3, 5, 7, and 9 with the possibility of being first in this race. And I think that gives us some viable options in a race we probably don't want to get too crazy with. I think there is value in this race. I think we have to make our stand and just hope for the best. But I think beating the more high-profile horses in this race is essential, and I think it's definitely the way to go.